We do have some interesting news coming out of a lot of people saw it maybe in the New York Times this morning, or they saw the articles going around, but it's actually from a video with Nancy Pelosi suggesting that maybe it's time for President Biden to step aside. Of course, she does it in the weirdest way, as if you haven't been following the news, and if there's one person who has made a pretty big deal about saying that he's not going anywhere, it's President Joe Biden. But here's what Nancy Pelosi had to say, bite two.
As long as the president it's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. I think overwhelming support of the caucus. It's not for me to say. I'm not the head of the caucus anymore, but he's beloved. He is respected, and people want him to make that decision, not me.
He has said he has made the decision. He has said firmly this week he is going to run. Do you want him to run?
I want him to do whatever he decides to do, and that's the way it is. Whatever he decides, we go with.
Whatever he decides to do, that's what they're going to go with. Then why not come out and say, we know what he said. He has made it very definitive.
He sent a letter to Congress saying how definitive it was.
Soliloquy that really went specifically into details about all the reason he is not going anywhere. However, when you have a Nancy Pelosi out there making these statements saying, we're kind of running out of time. We're running out of time. We hope he makes the decision soon. And Joe Biden is on the other side going, I've made the decision already. We know what that means. That means the pressure is now mounting. And the pressure is mounting from Nancy Pelosi. And then from the Hollywood side of this, you may remember 3 weeks ago, there was an event, a big Hollywood fundraiser. George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Jimmy Kimmel was the host. Barack Obama was there. And what happened at the end of that event? At the end of it, Barack Obama, calmly helped Joe Biden off the stage, grabbed his arm and his shoulder like you would a lot of people when you're trying to assist them. And that was at the big Hollywood George Clooney fundraiser.
He raised $30 million for President Biden that night.
Again, it feels like maybe it was a year ago. That was 3 weeks ago. And now you turn it on it, and George Clooney puts out an op-ed today saying, while he's a good man and we all support Joe Biden, it is time for him, for the good of the country, to step aside. One, that's a big fundraising moment, but that comes off, remember, barely off the heels, 3 weeks off the heels of them telling us that video we saw from that event with George Clooney was a cheap fake. And what does George Clooney say in this? But the one battle he cannot win is the fight against time. None of us can. It's devastating to say this, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the big deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. So that is George Clooney saying, I was with the guy 3 weeks ago, and what you saw that debate night, that is what is running the country right now.
He says, was he tired? Yes. A cold? Maybe. But our party leaders need to stop telling us that 51 million people didn't see what we just saw. The Democrats are now getting a taste of their own medicine, of being gaslighted, of being told what you see isn't real, and they don't like it. Surprise, surprise, because no one likes being told what you're seeing isn't reality. Just trust us. But that's exactly what party leaders are doing right now. And a lot of people are starting to have a little bit of issue with that.
There's a couple things happening. We need to be very well aware of this. There's two scenarios here. Both of them involve, by the way, a lot of people assuming Joe Biden is going to lose this election, which is pretty wild in a time when we are so split that they think their polling is showing that this is going to be a disastrous landslide victory for President Trump. That's crazy that I'm even saying that. And understand they're feeling it because there's two things that are happening. They're either actually encouraging him to get out of the race right now because they know he's going to lose, or the other option is they know he's not getting out and they don't want to be blamed for it. It's like the old, don't blame me, I voted for whoever bumper sticker. That's essentially what top leading Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, and then you have top fundraisers, George Clooney, Hollywood megastars, are saying, while Joe Biden says, I'm not going anywhere, well, they're saying, fine, well, you're not going to be associated with us. And when you go off and end democracy, which is what they think, we're not going down with you. And I thought it was I watched a clip from The Daily Show, and you had Jon Stewart say, this president actually can't tell us that this is the end of democracy if Donald Trump wins, and him still be running.
Right.
because you're saying it's not that important. Of course, in that clip of George Stephanopoulos, they asked him that. And they said, what was it? What was it? How would you feel if Trump wins? He goes, well, if I know I did my goodest job, that's a quote, then I'd be okay with it. Well, then you can't say the democracy is ending. And I feel that is maybe a sentiment that is now kind of happening amongst the American people, which is, remember, the rhetoric you're getting to is often just kind of lies, political stunt lies. I want to take some phone calls. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to Helen, who's calling on line 1. She is in Colorado and watching on YouTube. If you're brand new on YouTube, by the way, I'm going to ask you to hit that subscribe button. A lot of new people watch each and every day. Over 400,000 of you have joined us, 418,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hey, Mr. Beast just passed 300 million today. Help us get to that million. I'd love to see that at least. Come on, get us that gold plaque. Helen, though, you're on the air.
Thank you. Have the current vice president, cabinet, and members of Congress been asked whether or not they have covertly signed or are planning to sign a 25-page declaration on Joe Biden and have hidden it from we the people?
What Helen's asking is about the 25th Amendment.
Okay.
And so basically, Section 4 of the 25th Amendment says whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may, by law, provide, transmit to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of acting president. Now, this was something that they loved to talk about,
for Donald
trying
Trump.
to pull against Donald Trump because they thought he was unfit for office. Now, their term unfit just meant they didn't like his policies or his rhetoric. Yeah. This is actually a little bit more of what the 25th Amendment was meant for. It's if there is a medical emergency. They've used the 25th Amendment like when George W. Bush needed a medical procedure or surgery. They temporarily put the vice president as acting president and then quickly take it back. Go ahead.
No, go. I think that idea of 25th Amendment, I see it coming up on Fox News, by the way. They keep showing the graphic, is a disaster. It's a disaster waiting to happen for them because here's what historically now will happen. You've opened up a door you can no longer close. So now you have a situation just like impeachment where you've trivialized the presidency even now. And now the 25th Amendment, instead of being a worst case scenario, whatever you want to say, President Biden, clearly not like George Clooney said, not the guy he was 4 years ago, 8 years ago. But he's not incapacitated in that sense. He's not in a vegetable state. He is campaigning, doing these things, and he did win the primaries by a landslide. So you can't take that away from him now. Do I think that they've had these discussions? I guarantee you all discussions have been had. But they are not going to do that one lightly.
Well, the reason that it's getting a lot of airtime, one, because of the optics of the debate and the subsequent appearances by the president, but also Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about it.
Yeah.
And he actually said, if I were in the cabinet, I would be having that discussion with my colleagues at the cabinet level. We'll see what action they take. It's a serious situation. And this kind of goes along with some of the statements we've seen from former Secretary Mike Pompeo on our broadcast and other things where it's not just a election issue. The fact they've now pulled back his time and said he's done at 8 p.m. and some of the other issues that go along with that, there are people that are very concerned that there is a national security risk when the public knows and sees how frail and diminished in his capacity to perform a lot of the duties that President Biden is. Now, I don't think they're going to go that route. I think it would be a real medical emergency that sidelined him. He was in the hospital, which, I mean, for anyone in a high-stress job, that is a very real possibility. But I don't think that is something that they're just going to do until something like that were to happen.
Right. I think there is a way to get, if they decide, the Democratic Party, the DNC, all of these people decide they don't want Joe Biden as their nominee, they're going to figure it out. And they're going to figure it out in a way that doesn't invoke the 25th Amendment. That is not going to be, to me, the plan. The plan would be to get him to resign. And there are ways. This is Washington, D.C., the shadiest of the shady, the roughest of the rough, a place that I would you'll probably never live unless I had to because I've seen the underbelly of it. However, it's important that we're there, and the ACLJ has our headquarters there because we have to be there because when they talk about the swamp, they talk about the deep state. It also runs on that side, which is you have those situations where if they really decide that this is going to be impossible, that Joe Biden has no chance. And by the way, I would start saying that they're getting there. When you have a Nancy Pelosi coming out and you have George Clooney making an op-ed, you are saying there is no path to securing a victory here, and we're going to have Donald Trump as the president again. If you really feel that way, I think there's a way to get him to peacefully resign.
Well, and to go to your swampiness kind of comment, yesterday the headlines after the congressional meetings, both the Senate and the House had Democrat caucus meetings to kind of get a feel of where it was. And these are the headlines of The Hill. Tide beginning to turn in Biden's favor for now. Newsweek, Joe Biden starts to turn the tide on rebel Democrats. Axios, Biden rebels in Congress see their revolt crumbling. Now, then this morning, Nancy Pelosi, who tweeted yesterday, I will have a statement when I have a statement ready. Well, that apparently was today, and she went out there and gaslit the sitting American president who has said, I have made my decision, and she's just like, when he makes up his mind,
we'll be supportive.
We will support that decision.
That's what I'm talking about.
And it's very much, it is the fallacy that you see on the left often, whether it be them calling themselves pro-choice in the abortion debate. They only support one choice, and that is the same here. That President Biden can only make one choice. He's already made a decision. He's already chosen. It's the wrong one. So we're going to encourage him to make his choice.
Change your mind.
His decision. It's a manipulation tactic.
Let's take a listen and watch to this, and let's clear it up. This is George Stephanopoulos. They thought was going to be the easy one for him to do, that sort of softball interview that was going to make everyone feel better, and did it? Of course not. It made me feel a little bit better, maybe, if you were a Biden supporter, but it didn't feel that way. But he was caught on the streets by a TMZ reporter. And you got to give it to TMZ. They kind of secretly, quietly, just casually stopped him, George Stephanopoulos, yesterday. And we're just like, hey, you'll see it. And I'll have to read you what he said. Here's what he said.
Hey, excuse me. Hey, how you doing? Good. What do you think? Do you think Biden should step down? You talk to him more than anybody else have lately. And you can be honest. You don't think he can serve 4 more years? All right. That's an answer.
He just goes back to his walk, thought he was stopped by just a casual passerby who asked him, I don't think he can serve 4 more years. This is essentially what George Clooney said in that statement as well, which is, we've been with him. This is not a one-night only problem. So that is coming from George Stephanopoulos. ABC News then had to make a statement saying that is not our views. He said he shouldn't have responded to somebody, but they stopped him on the street. You know, kind of a casual.
Was honest.
Yeah.
And remember, George Stephanopoulos is a Clinton operative turned journalist of now working for NBC News.
He has been doing the journalism side of this
right, but I'm saying you can't forget where his loyalty began, where his career started. Yeah. He was a Clinton operative.
War room.
And that was the chosen high-profile moment for Biden was, let's go with George. It's safe. It'll be high profile on ABC News. This can help redeem it. And what do? You spend some time with him, and he ends up telling someone, a random person on the street who happened to be a TMZ journalist, saying, I don't think he can make it another 4 years.